Rich Lemcke is a kid that grew up in the Midwest, that grew up in a seemingly loving family and had some difficulties in high school, and as a result, did some things that he's not real proud of. And today, I'm not that person, but I am coming out of the dark on something that I feel the rest of the world needs to hear. When I was in high school, I had a problem with relating to other my peers. I had a problem with relating to them and communicating with them. And as a result, I got alienated and picked on in high school. And a lot of people were initially just taunting me and giving me a hard time, but it grew into something more than that. It grew into something where I was harassed, publicly humiliated, and even assaulted. And over the years, I got very resentful and very angry for it.
Until it reached what point for you?
Until it reached a point where the sense of injustice that nobody is going to help me and nobody is going to help me move on and nobody is going to assist me got me to a point where I started taking weapons to school. Initially, it was just knives. But then after a while, I went from a defensive weapon to an offensive weapon and started bringing guns to school with full intentions of carrying out a plan to kill people in my school and my classmates.
Can you say a little bit about, when you switched over from knives to guns and how the plan escalated in your mind?
It escalated as a result of nobody taking the initiative to help me. Faculty just watched things happen. Other classmates seemed to join in. My parents didn't really understand what was going on. And I had a hard time communicating the pain that I was going through. And as a result, I decided it was time for me to do my own vengeance, take on my own justice. What a sense of injustice I was feeling. I was feeling very angry and very bitter about the fact that a lot of these people just didn't seem to want to help.
Can you remember a point in which you kind of turned the corner and say, I'm going to do something bad? Well, not bad. I'm going to get even.
That was the night when I was at a football game and several cheerleaders were on the field. And prior to this, they pulled us over and they were talking to my friend and they recognized me. And they said, "Ugh, it's Lemcke." And I was humiliated and I was sad and I was angry. And perhaps that wasn't the turning point, but then at the football game, in front of people that I've known my whole life, people that I respected, people I trusted, people I grew up with, heard these girls yell in front of 1,000 people or more, "Ugh, it's Lemcke," and they laughed and they did this gagging motion in their throat. And the pain was so intense, and I got so angry knowing that even 50 feet away, there was somebody that I knew my whole life that didn't even say, "Stop it, girls," or "Rich, are you okay?" or "Rick, what's going on?" Nobody said anything. And that night, I vowed vengeance. I said, if I can't count on school faculty, I can't explain it to my parents, who's going to help me? Who's going to be there to be my support? Who's going to do anything? And I finally came to realization after 3 years that nobody would do anything.
When did you write this book originally?
I wrote the book in 1990, but I started journaling it in 1989. There was a camp that I was working at in northern Minnesota, and I had already written down some things that had happened, and I had an opportunity to speak to some troubled teens that came to the camp. And I thought I would step out on a little bit of faith, and I said some of the things that happened to these kids, and these kids were very hardcore. And I never saw so many kids as tears well up in their eyes and gave me hugs and said, "You're the first person that really administered to me, somebody who I think honestly knows what's going on in my life." And these kids and I connected in less than 2 hours, just talking about the pain that they were having, the pain that I was having, the direction they were going, and the direction I almost went. And that's when I decided, if I can impact 4 or 5 kids, imagine what I could do with the rest of the world if I wrote my whole book. So at that point, I took it as a mission, and I decided to write the book in hopes of sharing my story someday.
And so why did you not share the book until now? What was the thing that caused you to finally come out with your story?
It was a couple of things. The first thing that really comes to mind is the fear, because I was in law enforcement at the time. And I knew that if that story got out, I would never have a chance of being a police officer or being in law enforcement. And I was also very scared of what it would do to my family. I was scared of what impact would be on my parents. I knew it would tear them up. I knew it would be hard for them. And the other part is the reason I really wrote the book now is because I see all the school shootings, and I just often just say to myself, if I'd written that book 5 years earlier, 10 years earlier, could have I saved life? Could have I impacted them enough not to pull the trigger in the first place? Is there anything in my book that would have helped them? And I feel partly responsible for it because I know I went through this for a reason. And I think that's really where it really hits home for me the hardest, is that if somebody would have just stepped in, if somebody would have just befriended me, if somebody would have saw my pain, if somebody would have given me some options, given me some hope. Nobody gave me hope. Nobody stood by my side.